been watching Beyond the Imaginary Curve, and while I was in there, Eric Dubay popped by, which is always nice. So I thought I'd ask him a couple of questions, as I know my former guest, who I'll be chatting with later today, Tim Ozman, from Infinite Plane Society, has essentially done something that I don't particularly approve of. I've also called Flat Earth asshole out on this particular subject, which is calling people shills and CIA agents without any proof. So I thought I'll challenge Eric on a few different points, one of which was the point that Infinite Plane Society brought up, which was that Eric doesn't address the deeper deception, the fact that the globe is actually the latest iconography for a 2,000 year plus deception, which has just changed the cross into the latest iconography, which is the globe. So I don't know if I want to paraphrase everything that he says in his videos. I don't know, it's not even worth me putting a link to his videos on the bottom of this one, purely because I'll be interviewing him later today, so tune in for that. I'll be chatting to him about his Freemasonic connections, which, to be fair, I'd hoped I'd actually ask him about last time I spoke with him. I just ran out of time. I tend to try and keep the shows between an hour and a half at the most. That's just the length that I like to keep them. I think they're more digestible, although I have had other people like Dave Murphy say that he likes the 8-hour extravaganzas much more, which is fine, you know, to each their own, and yeah, I like to keep my shows to about an hour. But either way, once we'd reached about an hour and a half, I knew we could go on all night chatting indefinitely. He's an interesting guest. But yeah, so I've asked Eric Dubay why he doesn't feel that he's addressing the 500-year plus deception, and you can probably see his comments scrolling by. IPS pretends the Jesuits aren't the Jewsuits, like many fake truthers. So there we go. So I'll point out to him that I'm going to be chatting with him about the Jesuits. Well, I will be discussing the Jesuits with him also, based on what he said in this conversation. So yeah, I'll bring that up with him later, although the conversation should pretty much just be about Freemasonry. That's my intention, at least. That's what I'm going to be chatting with Tim Ozman with. I also caught, I hope you did as well, a little 30-second video that I put up a few hours back, which was just of him using Mark Sargent's name. And I'm laughing because I initially thought that was comical. You know, it's funny when Bob from Globebusters, Mr. from Globebusters, shared the link with me. So I got in touch with Tim Ozman and said, very good, you know, great. And he explained that it wasn't actually for comedic effect. It was purely because if anybody was to pick up on it, they would search for Mark Sargent and find a very digestible flat earth format for them to look at, which I thought was very smart. So I said to him, you know, wow, that's a lot deeper than I thought. So, you know, well done you and all the rest of it. But as I say, I'll discuss his town meeting later on today, if I get a chance to bring it up along with the Jesuits and Freemasonry. The reason specifically I'm getting him on to talk about Freemasonry is because he was, or is, I don't know, a Freemason. Again, if you see the chat scrolling by, you'll see at some point that Eric actually says, once a Freemason, always a Freemason. And I directly asked him, are you a Freemason? And he said no, for what that's worth. So there we go. But yeah, I mean, I'll ask him about his Freemasonic connections, IPS or Tim Ozman or quote-unquote Mark Sargent, whatever you want to call him. I'll ask him about that later this evening. And, you know, I asked Eric specifically if he had any questions that he had for Infinite Plane Society. And he, you know, he gave me a kind of quote. I'll read it out if I see it scrolling by as I'm doing this narrative now. But yeah, you know, my main point that I wanted to get across to Eric, and you can probably just see it having scrolled by now, was about him giving proof for claims that he makes about people being a CIA shill or an informant or a mole, or in the case of Jaronism, he's claimed he's a Bitcoin scammer. And I discussed this with Jaron on a show ages and ages ago. You know, I never dreamt it would still be an issue, but this is, as far as I know from Jaron, still on IFAs, you know, as though it's a real thing. Which is preposterous, but you know, I put it to him and all he did was direct me to IFAs. So there we go. That's as much as I could get out of Eric Dubay in terms of his nonsensical finger pointing. But there we go. You can't really do much if all he's going to do is point you to his website, you know, that's what he wants to do, so I can't really challenge him any further, and I didn't. But I did, as I say, ask him to give me a bit of a quote for IPS. You know, I asked him if he could tune in, but more importantly was to say, did you have any specific questions you'd like to ask him? And the reason being is because Tim Ozman of Infinite Plane Society has said on a few occasions that he's been trying to get hold of Eric to talk about this 500-year plus deception, and he feels that he's only got contacts back via proxies. Whether or not that's true is anybody's guess. There's no way of proving it, but he, you know, senses or whatever, believes that Eric has been getting back in touch with him via proxies. And if that's the case, or even if it's not, I would have liked Eric to have given me, you know, a decent question to challenge Tim Ozman on what he's asserting. Unfortunately, I didn't actually get anything like that from Eric, just to say that he's not highlighting that it's the Jews, which is pretty much his standard rhetoric, which is fair enough. Eric wants to bang that drum, and I played devil's advocate last time I spoke with Infinite Plane Society a few days ago and said, surely it's feasible at the very least that he could have fallen into that trap based on his research, and feels that that's the right way to go forward. And sure enough, he's backed that up, and when it comes to people, he's just directing people to his website, so not a great deal I can do in that regard. Anyway, I'm probably going to round out this video log here. I may leave the chat feed scrolling just so you can see what Eric actually said when it came to... no, I won't leave it here because something interesting happened on the chat. I'm just looking at it scrolling by rather than waffling now. And I asked Eric, as you can probably see on the screen, if he had a question. So do you have a question for Infinite Plane Society? I'd love to ask it on your behalf, was what I posed to Eric quite directly, and I don't have Eric's contact information, so, you know, I took the opportunity as he was there live to ask him, do you have a question for my guest, as the two of them don't see eye to eye, and that was essentially my reasoning behind it. And you know, I didn't know if he had missed it in the chat as he was replying to lots of other people. So at this point I thought, right, okay, I'll make it a bit more clear what specifically I want. So I type out the question again for Eric to read, which you'll see rolling on by in a moment, along with a fair bit of abuse from a few other people, as you can probably see, people calling me dumbasses and such, which is kind of another point in and of itself, because I've been banned from this channel that we're highlighting and I'm giving an advert to. I don't know by who, because I'm not a moderator, but I was banned on all three of my channels. And you know, this is no different. I got timed out here for saying that I don't often get a chance to speak to people like Eric Dubay. You know, he's not an easy man to get hold of. And by this point, unbeknownst to me, I've actually already been timed out. And you know, I haven't repeatedly asked him the question. I've just asked him once, do you have any question that you would like to ask my guest? As I'd love to have a quote or whatever. And rather than just simply being able to converse with Eric Dubay on this public chat forum, I got timed out for seemingly nothing. And frankly, I don't get it. You know, I'm a flat earther. I'm here looking for truth. I want to get to the bottom of things. If there's people that don't see eye to eye, I'm not here to instigate trouble. Moreover, I want to see peace and calm and serenity. You know, an end to people calling each other shills. Getting timed out just for talking to Eric Dubay on this chat feed seems ludicrous. But yeah, I thanked Teen Foilhat, or however you say his name, for timing me out, and he seemed to be happy to take credit for that. Not often you get a chance to interact with Eric Dubay. I would love to get a question, as he and the guest I'm speaking with later don't see eye to eye. Do you have a question for IPS, Eric? And then hopefully in a moment it'll actually flash up with his reply. Tin Foil Hat pointing out that I was timed out. IPS is a Freemason. The oaths are for life. I'm an anti-Mason and want it abolished. His shtick is pretending the Jesuits are the Jewsuits, so the same thing he said pretty much before. So that's all I get out of Eric Dubay, I think. So I thank him for his input and say that I'll actually quote this to my guest later on today. And again, I think I actually also thank Team Foilhat for timing me out and giving me a nice 5-minute gap when all I was trying to do was interact with one of his chat guests. So thank you very much for that, Teen, if it was indeed you. Much obliged. Yeah, what else can I say? Last time I got banned, I think it was Barbie McGill I explained to her that I'd been banned for seemingly nothing, and I think she got in touch with Dal to get me unbanned. So fortunately I did actually get the opportunity in the first instance, as Dal went to the effort of unbanning me. Can't say what I was banned for last time, but there we go. Anyway, that's it now. I will definitely round out this video log at this point, probably longer than normal. But yeah, thanks team. Much obliged, mate. You should see how helpful you're being to the cause, my friend, for banning me and timing me out just for chatting. Oh, and again, I was going to round out, now I won't. So this guy, Jim, calls me a twat and gives me a load of abuse. Used to it, didn't particularly fuss me, other than the fact that I've just got banned out for doing nothing, or timed out for doing nothing. But yeah, other people in this particular chat room seem to be able to have free rein to abuse at least me without any particular consequences. So the same guy, later in the chat, which amused me immensely, gives the exact same abuse to Eric Dubay and is immediately banned, of course. So what's good for the goose is clearly not good for the gander in this particular chat room. You know, if you're a friend of the show, then basically you'll get any abuse timed out, banned, and people aren't allowed to give you crap. But like Jim gives Eric crap here, and bye-bye, see you later. Anyway, thanks for watching, guys. Hopefully you can all tune into my video later on today with Tim Ozman of Infinite Plane Society, and I'll see you all in the live chat.